Rangers. This is Kodama, back with another video cast. It's been just over 9 months since I launched my channel, and I've noticed a lot of traction and engagement with my content, and with partner channels. And I realized I didn't have any introductory video about MGTOW. Actually, I did have one, but I took it down because it was really amateurish, and I didn't feel the need to explain MGTOW since there was already so much content out there. The translators brought over the whole foundation of MGTOW thinking in videos from Sandman, Stardust, Barbarossa, and TFM, so I thought it wasn't necessary to talk about it. It's worth mentioning that in the description of all my videos, there's a link to the translation channels, which bring together the best videos from abroad translated into Portuguese for you. The fact is that political, social, and conspiracy narratives have created a massive hysteria on social media, which is constantly a diarrhea of accusations, a real persuasive war where the winner is whoever manages to herd the most sheep, by using fear. Then another bunch of idiots comes along and tries to put MGTOW in a box, turning it into an us versus them game and who knows what else. That's why I'm here today, to make a basic video about what MGTOW is and what MGTOW isn't, so that when someone tries to build a straw man, you can use this content. So what is MGTOW? Basically, the acronym stands for Men Going Their Own Way, and it started around 2009 as a branch of the men's rights movement, the MRA. Over time, it was refined, and by 2012, it became what is known as MGTO 2.0, with Stardust and Barbarossa as the main contributors and promoters. And at that point, traditionalism started to be questioned and rejected. You see, the original MGTOW members were dissatisfied activists who fought for the restoration of masculinity and femininity. And there was this whole traditionalist vibe to it. But during this period of refinement, which was between 2009 and 2012, the MGTOW community started to dig deeper into the discussion and came to a different conclusion. And it's because of this conclusion that people try to put us into ideological boxes and political groups. Just as a point of curiosity, but still something relevant, in 2015, Barbarossa wrote an article, which I'll leave in the description or in a pinned comment, called A Rejection of the MGTOW Manifesto, and I completely agree with him. This is what sets the current MGTOW community apart from the Ragnar whatever guys. I don't know, some other guy over there who never did anything at all for the community, but made this obscure manifesto with some strange and questionable purpose, and that does not define MGTOW at all. But I don't want to rush things. So, getting back to it, MGTOW is not a reaction to feminism. Of course, feminism is a horrible and perverse ideology, but it's not just about being anti-feminist, because feminism isn't the whole problem. It's one of the symptoms that has much deeper-rooted causes. It seems pretty obvious, like any symptom, but it's far from being the real problem. It's part of the problem, but the wound goes much deeper. Our real enemy is gynocentrism. Gynocentrism is the practice, whether conscious or not, of putting women or their point of view at the center of your personal worldview. In this system, women's perceptions, needs, and desires take priority, where the female perspective becomes the point of reference, or the lens through which everything is analyzed. In other words, women are all that matters within this system, and everything else is subordinated to a whatever will benefit women. And this crap is way older than feminism itself, going all the way back to medieval society, in a term coined by Peter Wright as sexual feudalism. Of course, looking at it this way, it seems obvious that this is a joke, but that's what we have. It's the society we live in today, and the behavior of most people, whether men or women, is all governed by this feudal gene. That's why MGTOW 2.0 also rejected traditionalism, because it's just as gynocentric as feminism. While feminism is about the supposed inferiority of women, and so they create laws to diminish and emasculate men and level them with women, traditionalism is about the supposed superiority of women, putting them as the goal and life mission, and creating laws to hand over more and more resources to them, making men nothing more than servants who exist to satisfy the queen's desires. But now let's review what MGTOW is. MGTOW is a rejection of gynocentrism, and since MGTOW rejects this system, there are certain institutions that are so poisoned that you can't defend them without also defending gynocentrism. So, in order to oppose gynocentrism, you also need to oppose these institutions, at least in the way they're set up today, like marriage. Marriage is the biggest gynocentric institution in the way it's structured nowadays. For example, the woman has unlimited access to the man's resources, and she has the entire state apparatus to destroy him. She can take your kids, your means of survival, everything, just to maintain her own standard of living. And the man has no one to turn to, because family court is there to screw him over quickly, cruelly, efficiently, and continuously. Every man's bachelor party should be a whole day spent inside family court. Any loophole that allowed men to escape has been closed by both feminism and traditionalism. The stab in the back comes at men from both sides. And if you think that marriage, with state intervention, is an important and necessary institution for society, then you don't care at all about men. You're willing to betray them and also be part of this problem. And the more gynocentrism grows, the more we reject them, because before it was just marriage, family court, and so on. Today, this already includes dating, which, according to feminist justice, is seen as a common law marriage. And that's even worse, since it's not the same arrangement as marriage. So, the most twisted decisions that a family court judge can come up with, he rules in favor of the woman, and they do this without any remorse. In cases involving missile, they are strictly avoided because of socio-affective paternity. So the rules are as follows: no marriage, no living together, no dating, especially with missile. If you still don't know what missile is, just Google it. M for mother and soul for single. And for some people, even casual relationships fall under this rule. Depending on what year it is, the topic might not be trending anymore, but the soccer player Neymar is proof of why many people avoid these situations. Now comes the second part of what MGTOW is. In addition to opposing gynocentrism through what we call the Manifesto of No, MGTOW is about finding a purpose, and this is where most people get all mixed up, saying that MGTOW is just a lifestyle, that it's just about being a confirmed bachelor, or that it's a philosophy, and so on. And I want to make this very clear. You can't use a part to explain the whole. People like quick definitions and immediately put MGTOW into one of those boxes. If for you the definition of philosophy is the investigation of the essential and ontological dimension of the real world, going beyond the unreflective opinions of common sense that remain captive to empirical reality and superficial appearances, then MGTOW is also a philosophy. If, for you, a lifestyle is a set of behavioral aspects, habits, and routines aimed at keeping your financial, physical, and emotional health safe, then MGTOW is also a lifestyle. What you can't do is say that MGTOW is just a lifestyle or just a philosophy, because then you're reducing the whole to just a part, and that opens the door for anomalies like WGTOW and DGTOU to happen. Pretty soon they're going to come up with an LGBTQ plus GTOW. Damn, then the career-driven capybara is going to say she's following her own path, because she'll claim she's living the lifestyle of a proud single woman. Come on, man. This kind of oversimplification is like saying someone is right-wing just because they're in favor of the indiscriminate legalization of firearms, or saying someone is progressive because they support legalizing cannabis, or calling someone an ANCAP just because they criticize everything about the state. Now, getting back to the point. MGTOW is about finding a new purpose in life. That's because, from the time he's a kid, a man is taught that his purpose in life is to get married and have children, continuing the society he grew up in. A legacy, a genetic legacy. So, when you reject that kind of senseless purpose, when you refuse to be a wage slave, what direction are you going to take in your life now? What are you going to do for the rest of your life, now that you're not going to be a husband or a father? These are the questions that MGTOW seeks to answer through what we call self-actualization, internal validation, or whatever other name you want to give it. This goes way beyond self-development, because there's a real goal behind these terms. A lot of guys want to improve their lives, make money, buy things like a house and a car, look better, have a healthier lifestyle. Okay, but for what purpose? If your goal's just to get the girl, then you're not really doing it for yourself. Take the girl out of the equation. Would you still work hard, exercise, and eat better if getting the girl wasn't your external goal? The answer's no, then you don't have a valid purpose in life. That's what MGTOW aims to build for men who reject gynocentrism and its twisted tools, like marriage. To have a purpose in life so you can improve your life. Not for others, but for yourself. In this regard, minimalism also makes a lot of sense for MGTOW, because you reduce the number of things in your life and increase their quality. This is what's called withdrawing from the system, which doesn't always mean total isolation, but rather interacting less, yet with more quality. For example, getting rid of friendships that don't add anything to your life will logically result in fewer friends, but with higher quality. The legacy argument is pure emotional appeal. Ask this guy who Santos Dumont's children are, who Nikola Tesla's children are, who Nietzsche's children are, who Michelangelo's children are, who Beethoven's children are, who Leonardo da Vinci's children are. Go ahead, tell me. Do they have a legacy or not? When someone's intoxicated by genocentric programming, they'll come up with all sorts of excuses and justifications. When reality hits them in the face, they'll make one last appeal, like talking about legacy or saying it's God's commandment and so on. But in truth, they only say that because that's how they were taught to be. Legacy doesn't have to be something grand either. Not everyone was born for millennium glory to be mentioned in books 300 years after they die. For a paramedic, it might be saving as many lives as possible. For a musician, it's composing the song that expresses their soul. Maybe people don't appreciate your work right now, but later on, someone might be impacted by it. Life is full of complex twists, and many artists, scientists, writers, builders, doctors, and so on were only recognized as great long after their deaths. So let's review. MGTOW rejects gynocentrism, traditionalism, and marriage because these are tools of gynocentrism, at least in the way they're set up today. So it seeks to improve your life and build a new purpose through self-fulfillment. That's MGTOW. That's MGTOW in a nutshell, period. Anything beyond that is a completely individual choice for the man who chooses his own path. For example, voluntary celibacy does not define MGTOW. Total abstention from contact with women does not define MGTOW. Voluntary withdrawal, like going off to live alone in the woods, does not define MGTOW. Having casual relationships, just hooking up, or having a so-called unicorn fixer, that doesn't define MGTOW. Having a certain political view, belonging to a certain religion, or being an atheist. None of that, I repeat, none of that defines MGTOW. Those are individual choices a guy makes. But that alone doesn't make someone MGTOW. If someone tries to say you're not MGTOW using one of these arguments, they're using the no true Scotsman fallacy, trying to claim legitimacy to put themselves above you. Tell them to fuck off and that's it. I don't give a shit. That's why I'm against this whole thing of defining MGTOW levels, like MGTO Ghost or MGTO Monk. Those are just made up things and end up putting guys into boxes, when really it's just a personal path created by whoever came up with it. You can even use that as a reference to avoid long explanations, but it's important to make that clear too, otherwise the meanings start to get twisted. Now that we already know what MGTOW is, let's talk about what MGTOW isn't. MGTOW isn't politics, and people don't get that because everyone feels like they have to pick a political side. Everything has to have an ideologically biased identity and fit somewhere on the right versus left spectrum. What's funny is that everyone thinks MGTO is on the opposite side of the spectrum from them. For example, MGTO doesn't like feminism. So, since feminism is almost entirely on the left and MGTO opposes feminism, then MGTO must be far-right, fascist, misogynistic, and so on. That's not true. MGTOO opposes feminism because feminism is gynocentric. However, MGTW also opposes the traditionalist right, which is why we reject that very traditionalist MGTW manifesto I mentioned earlier. The tradcons accuse MGTW of being just as bad as feminists. They say it's reverse feminism, or that we're part of some big revolutionary plan to destroy the family, or that it's globalist or Zionist or whatever else. All because of, oh no, what about my precious little snowflake babies? What about the future little slaves? What about the legacy? Who's going to save civilization from the invasion of radical immigrants? So the right accuses MGTOW of being leftists. All of this has reached the height of stupidity that only a sheep could come up with in their head. So you might think that since MGTOW are against both feminism and traditionalism, then they're centrists, part of that crowd that's neither this nor that, the whole everyone is the same, let's all hold hands and sing Kumbaya thing. No, that's not it at all. MGTW rejects this idea of egalitarianism. And the most obvious and natural reason is that men and women are not the same. You can't treat the two as if they were the same. It just doesn't work. Things should be dealt with according to their nature. Anyone who understands human nature knows that egalitarianism is for people who are a little off in the head. The centrist egalitarianism oppresses men because to make them equal to women, you have to give women rights and privileges they never had to work for, that they never had any responsibility or merit to earn. And all of this comes at the expense of men. The equation is simple. If men are responsible for society, for keeping it safely stable, for women, for children, for everything, and then you take away men's authority and give it to women, leaving men only with the responsibility, all in the name of an equality agenda, you're screwing over men. And if you screw over men, you're screwing over society too. So yes, MGTO opposes feminists, traditionalists, and egalitarians. So where does MGTOW stand on the political spectrum? That's the thing. If it doesn't take a position, it's because it doesn't fit into any of them. MGTO is apolitical, and in the polarized and hysterical world we live in today, it's hard for a normie to understand that. And that's why they try to create a straw man, because they need something to attack. Now, an individual MGTOW can of course have political beliefs. Why not? That's a personal and individual choice, which could be aligned with the right, the left, or the center. I'd say a significant portion identifies with libertarianism or minarchism, but there can be MGTOW who are public employees and end up voting for the left out of convenience, because that guarantees them financial resources. So they can't want a small government because they depend on those resources. I get it, I can't judge you. That doesn't make you any less MGTOW. Another example is MRAs who advocate for increased public resources for men, more social services like a shelter for protection against domestic violence against men, or funds for prostate cancer treatment. In other words, they want to receive the same kind of government assistance that women get. That's something MRAs advocate for. I don't know how it is today, if anything has changed, but for that to happen, the money has to come from somewhere. In other words, more taxes, more welfare, and that's more of a left-wing thing. And there are some MRAs who are MGTOW. They're communist MGTOW, communitarian, collectivist, national socialist, confederalist, separatist. Some are closer to the far right, but because of the nature of MGTOW, which is decentralized and not collectivist at all, it might overlap with the right, but it's always opposed to both egalitarianism and traditionalism. Anyway, to sum it up, there are MGTOW individuals across the entire political spectrum. There are also men who came to the MGTOW mindset without ever having any contact with MGTOW content itself. And that can happen too. There are guys who come to my channel and say, man, I've always thought this way. I didn't know there was a community of people, of men, who thought like me. It's not uncommon for me to see this here in my comments in my videos. MGTO is also a global phenomenon. Because the pioneers like Barbarossa and Stardust spoke English, and many others after them also spoke English, there are people all over the world who speak English, and as a result, consumed this content. I'm going to put a screenshot here, right, a print from Google Trends. This darker blue area is where MGTO is strongest, right? I would say, based on topic searches. And you can see that Canada is in first place. Why is that, I wonder? Could it be because it's the most gynocentric country in the world, followed by Australia? Then come the United States, right? But according to the legend, you can see countries like Ireland, the United Kingdom, New Zealand, Lithuania, Serbia, Norway, of course Sweden, right? South Africa, Greece, Switzerland, Israel, the Netherlands, Hungary, Germany, Portugal, Spain, Romania, the U8 Emirates, India, the Philippines, Poland, and so on. It's everywhere, man. We're everywhere. And here I'm using the term MGTOW as a reference, but dependent on the culture, there may be other phenomena similar to MGTOW, like for example the herbivore men in Japan. So since it's a global phenomenon, it's apolitical, period. Just because you believe in Marxism and wealth redistribution doesn't mean you have to think marriage is something fair. It's like I always say, patrimony is what you call it when your financial assets and property belong to you. Matrimony is when your financial assets and property belong to the woman. Truth be told, marriage is crap. It doesn't matter what damn political ideology you believe in, whether you support multiculturalism or nationalism, none of that makes marriage any better. Nothing. None of that means that authority has been restored to men and heads of families. There's a side effect here, which I talked about in a previous video. Because it's a decentralized, open, and non-hierarchical community, anyone can join and call themselves MGTOW, and bring politics into MGTOW as if that's the core of it, right? Or the guy is a voluntary celibate, or he's averse to contact with women and wants to impose that as an absolute truth and as the general consensus among MGTOW, and then the community fragments. This happens all the time. I don't see a problem with that because MGTO isn't collectivist, so it's not a movement. It's a community made up of individuals, each following his own path, with his own goals, his own interests, his own purposes, all in the pursuit of building his own self-fulfillment. Then they come together and share experiences in smaller groups, maybe finding people who are on the same path as you, and then everyone, supports each other because they have similar journeys and learn together. So some reach the end of their journey of self-fulfillment and simply disappear from the community, and you never hear about that person again. That doesn't mean he abandoned MGTOW, it means that he is following a path that no longer involves being present in an online community, like YouTube or social groups or chats, etc., and that's okay, that's totally fine. See, MGTOW is actually something pretty simple. I know I talked a lot, but it was more arguments than definitions. I actually summed up MGTOW in a paragraph of less than 2 lines. Everything beyond that was just more arguments. A lot of people try to put MGTOW in a box, and some hysterical folks want to turn everything into politics, into some con, some conspiracy. MGTOW doesn't care about any of that, and MGTOW doesn't support Bolsonaro or Haddad or the MBL or any of that crap. If some MGTOW supports that, it's his personal decision. Generally speaking, maybe they're anti-feminist and anti-social justice warriors, but that's just because those are the ones in power right now. And since they value freedom, and feminists and social justice warriors want to get rid of it, especially men's freedom, that's totally at odds with MGTOW. But as we can see, now it's the traditionalists who are taking over the government, like with the extension of the Maria de Pena law, and then it's chaos, my friend. Let's pile on the criticism of this government that's working for egalitarianism, taking away even more freedom from men. It doesn't matter who's in power. If they try to do anything that takes away men's freedom, we're going to strongly oppose it. Now, if after all this you still don't get that MGTO is apolitical and everything just went in one ear and out the other, and you still want to put it in a box, create a conspiracy or a straw man, I really don't know what else to say to you, man. I just don't. I hope I've put a definitive end to this subject, because I'm not going to talk about it anymore. I'm going to get back to my usual topics, but honestly, it's enough already seeing people out there spreading misinformation and some self-appointed MGTOW authenticity police when the guy isn't even MGTOW himself and wants to tell others what MGTOW is. Now you have a video in Brazilian Portuguese bringing the real perspective of what MGTOW is today, based on the ideas of those who spread this movement worldwide. If you thought the video was cool, I recommend saving it to your favorites so that when you see someone making up rules out there, you don't get stressed. Just tell them to watch this video using this link. Don't forget to rate and share this video with as many people as you can in your WhatsApp, Telegram, Facebook groups, and so on. This helps the channel reach more people and spread information. So that's it for today, and I'll see you next time, strangers.